I need to grab some papers. Poppy Playtime is the newest indie horror game that exploded onto the market with a bang, and it's got never-before-seen things like missing employees and children's souls. Oh, those have both been done before? Okay, well, get this. It's got a lovable child toy reanimated as a demonic entity that chases you at the end of the first chapter. Oh, for sake. Okay, but jokes aside, Poppy Playtime, just like other similar games, has a lot of beautifully crafted lore to be deciphered and stressed about, so let's get into it. Warning, serious spoilers from this point forward, and yes, I'm aware I've already spoiled stuff, but I'm about to spoil a lot more because it's really quick rundown time. So we learn right off the bat that we are an ex-employee of a place called Playtime Co. Everyone assumes that the employees inside disappeared, but we get a note saying they did not, along with a very spooky VHS tape telling us about Poppy, the perfect doll who can have conversations with you, just like a real girl. Nope, nothing suspicious there. After we go to the factory, we get our grab pack, which is essentially a giant slappy hand we use to solve a lot of the puzzles or grab anything out of our reach. We then use our grab pack to break into the next room, and we meet WUGGY, who sits with his arm raised in a greeting. After obtaining a key and returning to the main room, you'll find that WUGGY is missing. Pushing past that, you go to the next room, collect some power cores, get the second half of your grab pack, and then follow a conveyor belt into the Make a Friend room, where you do exactly that, and make a friend. After the machine scans your toy, the door opens and WUGGY appears from the shadows, clearly hellbent on hugging you forever. After a chase scene that is frankly terrifying, we then enter a room with a glass box in it, and who is in the box other than titular character Poppy Playtime. One grab pack move later and we hear the last line of the first chapter, "You opened my case." Now, similar to other games in this genre, FNAF, Bendy, anyone, there's lots of little lore hints and evidence hidden throughout the game and outside the game to help theorists along, which has led me to this chilling conclusion. WUGGY is a child. I know at first glance this theory seems very out of the box, so let's lay down a few pretty much universally accepted theories before I continue. Number 1, Stella is Poppy. If you've ever watched or played Poppy Playtime, it is pretty obvious that they're one and the same. This is further supported by the fact that the pair share a voice actor. And number 2, WUGGY is alive. Believe it or not, he's not an animatronic or ink puddle. No, WUGGY is alive. He breathes, bleeds, produces saliva, and has a digestive tract. With these two things in mind, allow me to show you why I think WUGGY is a child. Now, before I continue, keep in mind this is 100% a theory that I came up with just because it's fun and I really like the lore behind Poppy Playtime. I found it really interesting. I ended up hyper-fixating on it, and I wanted to create a theory of my own. This theory will very likely be disproven in a future chapter of the game, or maybe by some sheer chance of crazy luck I got it correct. But again, this is just a theory, so here goes. Evidence number 1, the poster in the Make a Friend room. Towards the end of the first chapter, you find yourself in the Make a Friend room, where if you look around a little bit, you'll see a poster of 2 hands reaching out for each other, accompanied by some text that says, "The Playtime Co. Foster and Adoptive Care Initiative strives to create permanency in the lives of orphan children by recruiting adoptive and foster parents within our own organization." A little later in the poster it says this initiative helps children not only in the Midwest region, but also orphans around the world. Every child deserves a chance at a new life. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's that games like these don't include stuff like that unless they have a reason. I think now would be a great time to mention that every member of the story team for this game also played a part in the production of Fazbear and Friends, so like... This poster shows that there were/are kids at some point in the storyline of this game, and I mean, obviously this is a toy factory, but this poster places children in the care of employees at Playtime Co. The wording of this poster should also raise some serious alarm bells, the first bit being that they strive to create permanency. While that out of context seems like a genuine lighthearted statement, when you remember that you're in the middle of a horror game, it gets significantly more sinister. Perhaps they mean permanency in the form of a giant blue Sour Patch Kid condemned to roam the empty halls for over 10 years. The second alarming bit is the phrase, "Every child deserves a chance at a new life." Again, a perfectly acceptable sentiment if we hadn't just walked past a bunch of blood-splattered toys and a moving creature that is several times our height. As I've already explained, Huggy is very much alive, so after hearing how every child deserves a new life, the concept that Huggy is a child suddenly becomes a lot less far-fetched. Evidence number 2, the note. At the start of the game, we get a crudely written note that basically tells us to go to Playtime Co. and find Poppy, but there are 2 critical mistakes in the note. The spelling on disappeared is incorrect, which, understandable, me too. But the apostrophe in we are is in the wrong place. Similar to a mistake a child would make. An adult would likely cross the apostrophe out and rewrite it rather than letting that mistake remain. At the end of the day, whether the note is from Huggy or someone else, odds are a child wrote it. This means that there is still a child, or more, within the factory, likely in doll form. Evidence number 3, Huggy's behavior. Huggy seems to be relatively intelligent in that he can follow you accurately around the factory and only attacks you when you try to leave. An intelligence possibly not afforded to a young child. But we have to remember, in addition to whatever age Huggy was when he became Huggy, he spent 10 years in the factory, during which his brain would naturally continue to develop, meaning he could access a higher level of intelligence while still maintaining childlike tendencies, as they were never taught adult-like ones. One of those tendencies being monkey see, monkey do. As this theory stands, the scientists took an orphan child, took him apart, and put him back together as the Cookie Monster knockoff we all know now. Him being a child, he wouldn't understand that that should have killed him, but rather he will think, if I survived, surely everyone else would too. Hence his lack of hesitation when it comes to biting our head off. Also, did you see his smile when he chased us through the vents? It looked eerily similar to a child who is high on life, sugar, and bouncy houses. Almost like he's having fun. Almost like he's playing some convoluted game of tag with us. Except instead of becoming it, we get our head bitten off. Listen man, I know that's a pretty messed up kid, but leave my precious little murder boy alone. He doesn't know any better. Okay, now obviously this theory with just this information isn't without flaw and poses a lot of questions, so let me answer the most commonly asked ones. First up, why is Poppy an adult but Huggy and potentially others are children? Well, first off, Stella Graber, the person who became Poppy Playtime, was very obviously enamored with the idea of staying young forever, and toys, and general childlike merriment. All this to say she was likely a very willing participant. I don't know very many adults that would be as willing as her, however. The other possible reason for this could be the different purposes of the toys. For example, we have Poppy, the more dignified toy, capable of maintaining adult-like conversations, versus Huggy, a childlike toy whose only purpose is to give great hugs. Second is the theory that Huggy is Leith Pierre. This theory spawned from the handprint that appears on the screen during Leith Pierre's VHS tape, the very same VHS tape that can disprove this theory. During the tape, references are made to other not-so-nice aspects of the security system, or in other words, Huggy, meaning the pair existed as 2 separate entities. But if that doesn't convince you, remember the poster of do's and don'ts? Do not hide behind doors to scare Leith Pierre. Now, why would Leith be so worried about jump scares that he had to make it a rule? Unless he was afraid of a certain blue security system. The third question I get a lot is about the conversation between Rich and Avery, and how Rich implies that the Huggy Wuggy boxes are meant for the orphans. This, paired with the bit about every child deserving a new life and the bloodstained toys scattered throughout the factory, does make it seem as though the orphans were put into the small toys that were given to kids. But there is more than a few things wrong with that theory. The first being, no matter how bad your police systems are and how powerful your company is, hundreds of children that are in the care of your employees suddenly going missing would result in an HR problem that not even Toby Flenderson would be able to come back from. The second thing wrong with this theory is that in the trailer it said Huggy was the prototype, first of his kind that didn't need food to survive. And the scientist at the end describes Huggy as experiment 1006, meaning there should only be 5 before him, not the hundreds they would have sold to children. Does this mean that they weren't intending to use the orphans in this way? No, I wholeheartedly believe that was the end objective here, but as the scientist said, I just need one more breakthrough. And I imagine that breakthrough had something to do with preventing the uproar that would have occurred had kids' toys started bleeding, or eating, similar to the way Huggy does. Now, as I stated at the beginning of the question segment, I know this theory isn't without flaw or without questions, but this is the main basis of the theory and the big questions I get when I explain this theory to people, so if you have any more questions, don't be afraid to comment them down below. I would really, really love to answer them. Love to have a discussion, hear your guys' theories regarding the game, because I really, really like this game. So if you want to talk Poppy Playtime with me, I am down to talk whenever, unless I'm working, then I can't talk. Yeah, if you have any questions, put them down below. Any thoughts on the theory, also put them down below. I'd really love to hear them. And can't wait to see how every single part of this theory is disproved the second we start playing Chapter 2. Bye, guys!